Hi everyone, I'm Jason Peacock. Welcome back to the Peacock Podcast. This is episode 2, released every so often. This is my second attempt at recording this. 30 minutes into the first one, my computer went and shut off on me, crashed, I lost everything. So this is about a week later, take 2. Let's kick things off with games I've been playing. First thing I want to talk about is this abstract strategy game that has been doing very well. It gets lots of love. It's got mahjong tiles and it's called Dragon Castle. In this game, the initial setup are going to be these piles of mahjong tiles. They're going to be stacked from 1 to 3 levels high. Typically, you would use one of the setups in the book, but you can feel free to create your own as well. A typical one would be like, picture a pyramid. You've got an outside row of 1 layer. You come in a few tiles, you've got a second layer, and then you come in a few more rows and you've got that third layer. On your turn, you're always going to draw a tile off the top row, the top pile, as long as the long edge of that tile you want is exposed to the edge. And then you have a few options. You can go ahead and take another tile following the same rules with the edge from any stack. And then you add these to your little home board. You can also grab that top tile, and then instead of taking a second tile, you add these little buildings into your pool. These are point scoring buildings. They're good to have. Another thing you can do is remove a tile from the top altogether and then just collect 1 victory point, which is useful if you know another player might be going for it. So you keep going until you get to the bottommost row, and then this will signal the beginning of the end of the game. It could still keep going because players kind of set the time limit themselves. They have these little 2-point tokens that you can start grabbing from as your turn. Soon as that pile is exhausted, then that ends the game. Now, you might be trying to get some more points together and not want to rush the end of the game. Multiple players can be thinking that at the same time. And then you've got these other cards for special scoring. I'm not going to talk too much about those. But the way you score points is once you get 4 orthogonally touching tiles of the same color, then 4 or more, then you have to consolidate them. You're basically turning them into the points at this juncture. You'll flip all those tiles over, and you can put one of those little buildings you got on any tile. And depending on the height of that tile you put it on, like if it was on a stack of 3, it'd be worth 3 points at the end of the game, as opposed to having a building on the bottom layer. Once they're placed, they have to stay there. And the reason I say 4 or more is because you can have like 3 touching, and then you can have another set of 3, and then a diagonal off from that, and then you put down a tile that joins those other groups. That's when you can get bigger points, because the more tiles you consolidate at a time, the more points you're going to get. I played a couple of times with my son, my 9-year-old, and I played once with my wife, but we were kind of distracted. And I like this game, but I haven't fallen in love with it yet. It needs some more plays, and I really got to play a cutthroat game where people are hate drafting. They intentionally looking at what you're trying to do and countering your moves. I think the game is really going to open up. It plays up to 4, but in my heart, I feel like this is typically a 2-player game. I imagine that in a 4-player game, by the time your turn came around again, any plan, like, you can't do a whole lot of thinking during other players' turns because the state of the board changes so much. But I will have to find out. Next up on my list of played games is one that stayed set up for the better part of a week, got played about 6 times, and completely blew me away on how much I like this game. And that game is Istanbul, 2014 Kennerspiel winner. Now, I feel like this game is a little more gateway than the Kennerspiel, but, you know, what do I know? I'm not a judge for the Spiel, but I guess I should have checked it out sooner, knowing that it won one of the most prestigious awards, but I just never wanted to buy it. That cover never interested me. I never heard enough overwhelming praise when it was nominated. but I am converted on this. I love Istanbul. This is a game that plays in about 45 minutes. It plays just as good with 2 players as it does at 4. I really like the 2-player. It plays fast. Your turn comes around, bang, bang, bang. It's like a race game to collect 5 or 6 gems if you're playing 2-player, and then that signals the end of the game, and you're going to these different action spaces by moving around and dropping off your assistants to do these actions. It's much more simple than that. You just have a stack of discs, and when you move 1 or 2 spots with your disc, 1 tile over orthogonally, you can either drop a guy off to do that action, or if there was already one of your guys there, you can pick them up, add it to your stack, and do that option. Or you can choose just to move and not do anything, and then you don't lose any of your stack. And there's 1 spot on the board that lets you reset it if you don't want to have to go back on your same very route. I love how the game is never really over until it's over. You can be down 3 gems in the last round, play some of these bonus cards you can get. You can get some special powers, and you can string together a combo where you say you go to the gem dealer and you got a bunch of money saved up. You play a card that lets you do that action twice. So all of a sudden you just bought 2 gems. And then you've got another plan for your next turn, and your opponent is worried. And typically it can come down to more than one person having the goal amount of gems by the end of the round. And then it comes down to money. So very interesting. Like I said, I played it 6 times, 5 all 2-player games, and my 9-year-old son loved it. My wife loved it. And I just got the coffee expansion for it. So dying to get more Istanbul. I can't say enough good things about it. All right. Now I'm going to talk about a game that is like the king filler game for me. This is a game that I can bring anywhere. I can show anyone, gamer or not. They might be rolling their eyes at me at the suggestion of it at first, but within 2 minutes, I've got cockroach poker going. And after a round or 2, people are asking where they can buy this game. And I've bought in like 5 or 6 copies because I just keep giving it away to people that love it. Such a fun game. Plays amazingly well at 2. You've got a hand of cards with 8 different kinds of insects. You could have anything in your hand. If you ever have 4 of the same insect laid down in front of yourself, then you lose and everyone else wins. It's got all the excitement of poker with none of the financial risk. You got to look someone in the eye, you pass them a card, and you say, "This is a stink bug," for example. And then that person looks at you, they try and read you. They're looking at the cards that are already up on the table and thinking, and statistically, if you could be telling the truth. They're trying to remember other cards that you've played, and if it's realistic that you might have one of these. Because if you get that 3rd bat in front of you, then or that 3rd stink bug in front of you, then it's really going to be stressful, and everyone's going to try and stick you with that 4th one. So the person says, "It is a stink bug." He flips it over. If he called it right, as in it was a stink bug, then the bluffer, the guy whose turn it was, has to put that card in front of them and then go again. If that guy said, "No, it's not a stink bug," he flipped it up, and the guy was telling the truth, then the target puts that card in front of him, and then he takes his turn. So you just see, if you place a card in front of you, then it's your turn. You can also lose the game if you run out of cards. It plays in anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And it's hilarity. All right, I got a game that's new it's a new CMON release, but it's an older game, and that's Council of 4. I never played the original version, but this pimped up CMON minis version is pretty nice. I got 1 play of this in. Definitely not a game I fell in love with on 1 play, 2 players. But definitely a game where I went, "Oh, this is cool. I'm looking forward to exploring it a bit more and playing it again." So I won't spend too much time on this one, but you've got like the Ticket to Ride style set collection, and you've also got board placement. If there's already people on these spots on the board, it's going to be more expensive for you to put yours down. But anytime you get to do a board action, the city that you have guys in and everyone that's connected to them all get to do an action. So you end up chaining together all these moves. And it's very cool, and there's some definite strategies to explore on this one. So this is a game that's hitting the table again, and I really want to see what this makes this one tick. Next game I got to play in, it was my son goes away for the summer to his biological moms, and it was our last night together before he took off. So he asked what I wanted to play, and I said, let's play something epic. So he went in, he stacked the game table full of epic games that he was willing to play. Rum and Bones hadn't hit the table in way too long, so got that thing set up. It's good dice chucky fun, and it's kind of that Acadia Quest, running around, hack and slashing, fun factor thing to it. And the way you play each faction's tied cards really elevates this beyond just randomly chucking dice. And the guys that you use for your heroes, the ones you pick, and there's a ton of variety in mercenaries and different rules for the faction you're in, can really have some good fun combos. And the powers are just ridiculous. They're just super almost game unbalancing, but every hero has one, and it gets ridiculous what some of them can do. You can get knocked overboard, you can swing from one part of the ship across to another one, hope you don't fall in the water. A big kraken can actually rise up and start eating your guys left, right, and center, because in addition to your heroes, you've got your minions just blindly running forward and attacking, but you can still use those guys to run up. The second tide was a modification of the first edition's rules in the best possible way. I enjoyed the first one, but there was something missing, and it's because it takes so long for you to do your entire turn. You would do all three of your heroes, you would move all your crew, you would fire the cannon, and when your crew moved, they attacked, and then they moved up. Second tide, it goes back and forth. I activate a hero, you activate your ship and your crew and your gun. I'll activate another hero, you activate a hero, and that back and forth really escalated this game for me. And I think I was probably going to sell the first tide until I seen what the changes were on the second one. And yeah, good job. The little bits of refinement they did with the rules were all good. And even that the crew, they're going to move and then attack in second tide, which just keeps the pace of the game going. If you're into these skirmish games, two-player mainly, but it can be played more players with each person playing a hero. I've never done it, so I can't really comment on it. But it is fun. It's a big splashy plastic expensive extravaganza though, and it's a lot of money to get a ton of variety out of it. If you miss the Kickstarter, there's a lot of guys you're not going to get. So there's that. All right, next game I'm going to talk about. One of my favorites of 2018. I knew from when I read the rules during the Kickstarter that I was going to like this game. This is one of the two big area control games coming out this year, and that's Lords of Helis. Came out right around the time of Rising Sun. And this one is my favorite area control game to play at two players. I had a friend over. We did the two-player. When I mentioned playing a dudes on the map combat-y game, he wasn't super excited, but he let me twist his arm, and he ended up loving this game as well. So I'm glad he did, because this is my cup of tea, to have this kind of back and forth and get that area control epicness going. This game is awesome. It's everything I wanted it to be. There's 4 different ways to win, 3 if you're playing 2-player. There's beautiful minis, monsters roaming around the map. Your hero's off fighting them. You're taking control of territory. There's hotly contested ones, and the battle is furious. The card play is brilliant, better than Kemet does or Blood Rage does. Really like the combat. And this game is almost all strategy. There's no dice. You can probably get lucky with the combat cards you draw, but you also have to be drawing combat cards with a prepare action to make sure you can take on any force. Just love it, though. I got a review of this one up on the Dice Tower, I think, so if you want to get a more detailed opinion, go check out that review. All right, I know this is a long list, but I don't do these every week, so I'm just going to ramble for a bit. Because all these games I've been playing have just been amazing, and I'm excited to tell you guys. So, Seventh Continent. This was a big Kickstarter release. So big, in fact, that a second reprinting of that same Kickstarter, along with a bunch of expansions, relaunched, similar to what Gloomhaven did. I've actually been playing a ton of Gloomhaven. I'll talk about that next time. This is an exploration game. It's co-op. I've been playing mostly with my son, but my wife joined in for a game, and the exploration is so much fun. It's got, as you explore, there's just a ton of things you can check out. There's just, reference numbers to cards, so you're on a little square picture, you see this big rock face, and it's got card number 8. So one person decides to check it out. Hey, I'm going to go check out that rock face. Anyone want to join me? Other players can join in and make it easier to accomplish. But if you attempt something together and you fail, then you also get a negative condition. You're paranoid of your friends. You don't trust them anymore. But say you go over, so you'll go grab the corresponding card. You put it attached to that one square, and it's the artwork of the rock that you wanted to check out. And maybe there's a test that you have to do, and the tests are done by having to draw a certain amount of cards from a common deck full of skill cards. Once this deck runs out, then the discard pile becomes your new deck, but now if you draw these curse cards, the first one you draw, it's game over. You're immune to those curse cards the first time through your deck, and then it's basically time management. The more cards you have to spend doing skills, the less you're going to live, right? Because you're spending your life energy. Anytime you do a test, you can take one of the cards that you flip up, and you flip them up, and you're trying to align them so that they're completing stars on the sidebar of them. So sometimes you can choose to take more cards to increase your chances of succeeding at something. I've played maybe 4 hours or so, and once very close to death on the next game. Really easy to save, by the way. They've got it really organized, so you can just pack up your game and resume where you leave off. And I'm only on the first curse. I got another bunch of curses to go through. I have a blast playing this with my son. I think it plays best at 2. Sure, the turn structure is like anybody can kind of just delegate to go or move or go here, but if one person is off checking something else out and there's a lot of stuff going on, other people in that tile are going to be continually going, so that other person might get bored. But I would happily give this a go with 3 or 4 players, especially if everyone was full on in on what was going on in the story. Can't recommend it enough, but alas, it's Kickstarter only. I hope they do another printing. It's likely they would. They've got all this expansion stuff coming out. The game keeps selling. Expansions really reinvigorate the love. I can see getting another Kickstarter release. And the last game I'm going to talk about, Orlais. This Euro game, this bag building game they call it, is basically like a deck builder, but you're throwing workers into a bag. All these workers have different professions. The different actions on your board require different combinations of professions. Some of these professions you don't start with, and you have to actually go out and get them. You don't always get the guys you want to fulfill your plans, but this game is great. Another one that my wife loves, plays great 2-player. It played awesome 3-player. I picked up the expansion, the Trade and Intrigue expansion. The same friend that came over, we played Lords of Helis and we played Orlais with the expansion. The expansion's great. It really adds. Well, you have a couple of options. You can play with the board that lets you mess with the other player, a really aggressive board, or you can play with the updated Good Deeds board. I can't comment that on too much because, of course, we went with the Shady Characters board. You can, send a kidnapper where you basically plague the guy. He has to draw a work out of his bag, and if it wasn't one of his starting workers, it dies. Or maybe that's the Hangman. And the order cards, there's all new orders, which I just love. There's a bigger selection. You're not using the same ones every game. The new order board, or the new orders that happen every round, the new boards. What other expansion was there? Well, I'm going to be playing more of this one anyway. 2 thumbs right up. This is almost like Orlais with the expansion. Is not quite as important as Viticulture with the Essential added on, but I feel this, the expansion is something I'm always going to play with. I'm always going to use those order cards. I'm always going to use one of the 2 newer boards. And, there's some new buildings as well. Yeah, I'll always have those new buildings thrown in there. The buildings is probably my favorite part about Orlais, because everybody's got the same actions they can do, but you buy these buildings. Well, you don't buy them, but you take the trade guy, and when you take one of those, your cube goes up the track and lets you add a building to your personal board, which gives you your own special actions that only you can do that other players can't get. They got to get their own buildings and find their own strategy. And, you've got, I don't know how many different strategies from the buildings you decide to grab, and then how many different strategies they are where you don't even deal with buildings. And every time I sit down to play Orlais, it's like, all right, what do I want to do this game? Every time I sit down at the table with this, I'm always excited, and it's 2 giant thumbs up for me. All right, thanks for sticking with the banter. Hope you enjoyed listening to what I was saying. This week, I wanted to talk about my most anticipated games coming out at GenCon. All right, let me start off my GenCon anticipation list. I browsed through the list on BGG. Now, not every publisher has uploaded what they're going to be presenting at GenCon. Fantasy Flight always has something up their sleeve. Usually something I get excited about. I'm just going to start talking and riff through these. You guys let me know what you're excited about, what you think I'm missing that I should be excited about, and what do you think about the games I'm stoked to play. All right. This one's from Arcane Wonders. Love Arcane Wonders. Mage Wars, OG. One of my favorite games. One of the coolest games. I mean, anyone who plays Mage Wars just knows how badass that game is. This one's Critical Mass, and it's a Dice Tower Essentials. So Tom Vassell brought this one. I didn't realize that till recently, so I'm even more excited to know that, because I've liked all of the ones I've played that were Dice Tower Essentials. The only one I haven't played was that Faces one, and I just knew that wasn't for me. But Royals, I love. I don't think that game gets enough love, but Royals is awesome. Sheriff of Nottingham is a classic around here. That game is a ton of fun. Viral, one of the coolest area control games that would get played a ton more if the 2-player wasn't meh. And now this Critical Mass. Oh, and Onitama, that's another awesome one. So I should mention the expansion next, Onitama expansion, Way of the Wind. Any more Onitama? That game's amazing. I love it. It plays super quick, and it has just for me anyways, the decision-making of a chess game. But Critical Mass, it's kind of like this robot dueling game, but it's played with cards, and it's you're trying to outguess and outbluff your opponent. The base sets that it come with are like $20-something bucks, so it's a really low entry point for me to check it out, so definitely. And it's ripe for expansion, so if this game takes off, I bet there's going to be a lot of other cool mechs. And I actually thought this game, Critical Mass, I remember watching the Gamma Trade show a couple of years ago, and I swear Arcane Wonders was talking about a game that had mechs with like removable parts and interchangeable arms and whatnot, so I thought that's what this game is. I haven't heard anything about that other game in the longest time, so I hope they're still on that one, because that one sounded awesome to me. Although I do have giant killer robots, and that game is great. It would have to dethrone that one. Okay, moving on. The Great Western Trail expansion. I love Great Western Trail. That's right up there with Orlais for me. Scythe, Istanbul. Just a great Euro. So I don't think it needs an expansion at this point, but I'm just a sucker for variety. And if there's a game I really like, I want to see what the expansions bring to the table. This one's from Colossal Games called Combo Fighter. I just heard about it. But if the game can really replicate a Street Fighter kind of feel with some strategy, super interested to check that one out. We've got an Emerson Matsuuchi design game. I would argue one of the hottest designers in the last couple of years with a string of hits is coming out with Reef. Now, this game, people have already got it. It's being sold at conventions, and I want it. This is an abstract strategy. It looks like it's got that century kind of goal thing, where you're trying to get combinations of different colors on stacks to score points from a card that you're playing from your hand. Looks super strategic and, what's a better term? Easy to learn. hard to master. Sentry is a great game. Spectre Ops, his new Spectre Ops just came out. Really love what this guy's doing. I'll always pay attention to his designs, and if I like Reef, then he's batting 1,000. Okay, I wrote down Clank in Space expansion. I could take or leave it, I think. My wife prefers the original Clank, and it hasn't been hitting the table as much as I would like. I've got enough content for it already between the 2 base games and the underwater expansion. And too much for these kind of games, too many expansions can actually detract from playing it because there's just too much stuff to sort out. And I don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm like, I would grab it for the right price, I think, and add it in. But I'm not overly stoked about it. But I do love Clank and Clank in Space. Just a couple of the people in our game group don't gel with it, so that's probably That's probably a big reason why I don't have as much excitement as I would if I was playing Clank a lot. Fireball Island. I'd be surprised if this one is going to be sold there. It's probably just being demoed, but if it is, I didn't back this, and I'm not jumping on the hype train for this one, but it could be an awesome one to be playing with the kids. I don't need all the extra Kickstarter stuff, but the base game, when that hits retail, I'm looking forward to checking it out. There's an expansion for Gloomhaven, Forgotten Circles. I really don't know much about it, didn't pay much attention. There's going to be more Gloomhaven. I got so much Gloomhaven ahead of me. So when it eventually hits, I'll scoop it up. It looks pretty inexpensive. My Little Scythe. This is a fan-designed My Little Pony version of Scythe that's more kid-friendly. Doesn't look like a kid's game like I'm playing it with my 4-year-old, but it looks like my 9-year-old might love it. I've already got a copy of that being sent over from Stonemaier Games, so it's on my list. I'm getting it anyway, but I am excited about it. And the Rise of Fenris, I love Scythe. A couple in our game group loves it too, so I get to play that one regularly. I love Scythe. I'm excited to see what a legacy twist on this will end up being like. Really excited. I'm getting this one, and I'm gonna be reviewing it, but excited for it nonetheless. Pandasaurus games. We've got Nyctophobia. This is a game designed by a young woman who used to play games with her blind uncle, I think. I'm sorry if I'm not getting the facts 100%, but something along those lines. And she was always had that in mind, to design a game that she could play with him. So this game, it's a one versus many. All the players are blindfolded, and they're using their hands on this bumpy board to make decisions, and the person that can see is hunting them. It looks spooky. I'm excited to see how that plays. There's an expansion for Terraforming Mars. This is one I'm not super excited about, just because I could play Terraforming Mars another 10 times with the extra map and the last expansion that came out. But more Terraforming Mars, sure. I'll pick this up when it hits stores. All right. There was a few that I missed earlier up on my list, so I'll touch on these and then I'll say goodnight to you guys. Pandasaurus games, the Totally Liquid expansion to Dinosaur Island. I backed this. I'm looking forward to it showing up. I didn't even look too much into the rules. It's kind of going to be a surprise when it gets here, but Dinosaur Island is a game that the whole group loves, so I'm happy for more of it. And Duelosaur Island, a 2-player Dinosaur Island game. Let's see what you got, Jonathan Gilmore. I'm excited to check this out. I also backed it. I can't wait, and I will talk about it when I do play it. All right, I think I covered everything that I wrote down when I read through that BGG list. Kept you guys here long enough if you stuck around this long, and I'll see you soon. I'm getting a computer updated and better equipment and stuff to make this faster, easier. At some point, I'm sure I'll hit a regular schedule, but you'll just have to look out for them in the meantime. All right, I'll catch you later. Thanks.